The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Prithvirajsing Roopun, President of the Republic of Mauritius. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency, Mr. Philemon Yang, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good afternoon. Mr. President, I also warmly congratulate you. Mauritius is proud to see a son of Africa assume the high office of President of the 79th session of the General Assembly. I assure you of the full support of Mauritius. We remain committed to the universal values and noble aspirations of the United Nations. Our appreciation also goes to His Excellency Denis Francis, who throughout the 78th session championed solidarity and unity during challenging times. Secretary General Antonio Guterres also deserves our special recognition for his inspiring and commendable initiatives in furthering the objectives of our organization. Mr. President, the theme being addressed in this August Assembly is in consonance and resonates deeply with the very essence of our organization. The UN emerged out of the ashes of war and untold sufferings. We have a moral obligation to ensure that the ultimate sacrifice of millions of women and men was not in vain. Our organization has since embodied the universal values of peace, justice, equity, respect for the rule of law, and human dignity. It is appalling that we are lately witnessing an erosion of these same values. Unfortunately, might is taking over and impunity still prevails. The dignity of the weakest is being shamelessly flouted on a scale never seen before. Behind protracted conflicts around the world lies inestimable human costs. Mr. President, the devastation and sufferings in Gaza are heart-wrenching. Thousands of innocent lives have been lost. We urge the international community to find a solution for a de-escalation in the region, for a just and lasting peace. And we are convinced that the two-state solution based on relevant UN resolutions and international law will uphold human dignity and equality for all. We welcome the advisory opinion on the legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. There is an urgent need for a renewed commitment to diplomacy and constructive dialogue, as in many parts of the world, conflicts, instability, and challenges to security are still unabated. Mr. President, the world has witnessed an unprecedented technological revolution in a short span of time. For humanity to benefit from its transformative power, AI governance should be anchored in international law. Current unsustainable consumption and production trends are exacerbating injustices and inequalities. We are at a watershed moment. Mauritius welcomes the adoption of the Pact for the Future, which is a renewed testimony to our collective resolve for the betterment of our world. We also need to ensure that the overall architecture of our global institutions reflects today's realities. Mauritius believes that inclusivity is a necessity and not a choice. Small states and large alike deserve a voice. Africa and SIDS have their rightful place in a reformed Security Council. Multilateral and international financial institutions should be more representative and also responsive to the needs of all countries. This is the only way to pave for a more equitable and resilient world where human dignity is upheld. Mr. President, Mauritius believes that human dignity is universal, unalienable, and unconditional. This conviction has always guided our actions. Our multicultural society thrives on fairness, equity, and human dignity. Through unity in diversity, we have strengthened our unique and tolerant society. We have spared no effort in advancing the economic, social, and cultural rights of our citizens. Our commitment to free and fair elections, good governance, and putting people at the center of development remains resolute. We are investing heavily in free healthcare, infrastructural development, free education for pre-primary school to tertiary level, amongst others. We are promoting decent work for all. The empowerment of women and youth remains at the heart of the government actions. These inclusive approaches and supportive policies have contributed to the strengthening of our social fabric. Mr. President, the climate emergency is one of the most pressing global threats of our time. Greenhouse emissions from human activities have irrefutably contributed to global warming, sea level rise, and coastal erosion. It is most unfortunate that SIDS, like Mauritius, which have contributed to the least in global emission, are being the most affected. A multilateral approach to confront these threats is an absolute necessity. We must achieve the highest possible ambition while ensuring equity, common and differentiated responsibilities. Our actions need to be guided by the latest scientific insights and informed by the outcomes of the global stocktake agreed upon at COP28, including its roadmap for keeping 1.5 centigrade within reach. This target is a lifeline for all of us, especially SIDS. Therefore, an agreement on a fair and ambitious new collective quantified goal on climate is imperative. As temperatures rise, the very foundation of life for oceanic states are endangered. We welcome the recent advisory opinion of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea on climate change. It stands as a juridical lighthouse compelling all states to chart a new course guided by science and the moral imperative of intergenerational equity. In the fight against climate change, our resolve should be translated into concrete and time-bound actions. One which is commensurate with the urgency and scale of the climate crisis. Mr. President, Mauritius has ratified the BBNG treaty, underscoring our commitment to protecting our ocean resources and ensuring sustainable marine governance. We are fully committed to the implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, adopted earlier this year. The openness of SIDS economies makes us more vulnerable to external shocks. SIDS should be able to access global value chains for green jobs. We welcome innovative approaches and the use of the MVI for enhancing the effectiveness of access to constitutional finance. Mr. President, Mauritius has been and remains fully committed to the advancement of our African continent. Africa is a land of untapped opportunities. However, our continent is faced with several challenges, preventing it from realizing its full potential. Our Agenda 2063, including the African Continental Free Trade Area, has the ability to propel Africa. Our continent also resonates with cultural richnesses and stands united in purpose. Africa, with its youth dividend, stands ready to contribute to global solutions in shaping a more equitable and sustainable world for a better tomorrow. We call upon the international community to join in Africa's transformative journey. Mr. President, Mauritius and the United Kingdom are still pursuing negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago, following the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice of 25th February 2019. Several rounds of talks have taken place so far, and Mauritius continues to be engaged in these talks in good faith. We urge the United Kingdom to conclude expeditiously an agreement that would allow for the completion of the decolonization of Mauritius and the implementation of a resettlement program for the former inhabitants of the Chagos Archipelago in accordance with Mauritian laws. Such an agreement would also protect and preserve vital security interests on Diego Garcia. We also appeal to France to resolve the dispute over Tromelin, which forms an integral part of the territory of Mauritius, in the spirit of friendship that characterizes the relationship between our two countries. Before concluding, I wish to emphasize that the United Nations remains the ideal platform in bringing us together to address global challenges for a peaceful and more equitable world. We need also to recognize the contribution of the UN, its agencies, and dedicated personnel. Mr. President, we are convinced that the Pact for the Future will serve as a guiding star, leading us to an improved world for tomorrow's generations. I am confident that, together, we can forge a better, brighter, and more equitable world. One where no one is left behind, where human dignity and human rights prevail, where collective good for mankind remains at the core for lasting peace and prosperity. I thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Mauritius,